you guys doing today? Jason A. Kuhn here, giving you a Fight the Deception with Real Perception Christian News Brief for December 18th, 2013. We got a lot of news. I hope I can fit it in the 15-minute time limit. Let's jump into it here at endoftheamericandream.com. Obama allows Great Lakes water to be sold to China as half of the U.S. faces extreme water crisis. What in the world is Barack Obama thinking at the time when the United States is facing the greatest water crisis that is ever known? Obama is allowing water from the Great Lakes to be drained, bottled, and shipped to China and other countries around the globe. Right now, the Great Lakes holds approximately 21% of the total supply of fresh water in the entire world. Considering the fact that global water supplies are becoming extremely tight, that is an invaluable resource. One recent UN report projected that 2/3 of the people in the world will be dealing with water stress, and 1.8 billion people will be facing absolute water scarcity by the year 2025. So why are we allowing foreign corporations such as Nestle to make millions upon millions of dollars pumping water out of the Great Lakes and selling it overseas? Considering the massive worldwide water crisis that we know is coming in the years ahead, shouldn't we be doing everything that we can to protect this precious natural resource? This is a really in-depth article. If you want to check out the rest of it, it will be linked in the YouTube description box. We'll move on here to Telegraph.com. Saudi Arabia warns it will act against West policy in Middle East. Saudi Arabia has warned it has been forced to go its own way in foreign policy as its Western allies seek diplomatic solutions to the war in Syria and crisis with Iran. Saudi Arabia's ambassador to London said U.S.-led diplomacy in the region was risking the stability of the Middle East. Wow. Mohammed bin Nohaf bin Abdulaziz Al Saud, wow, tongue twister, said this country is determined to independently arm Syria rebels and could not stand idle by while thousands of children were being killed by Syria's regime. Despite almost a century of friendly ties with countries such as Britain and America, the oil-rich monarchy can no longer follow its allies as they pursue diplomacy with its Middle Eastern enemies. Wow, okay, that's from Saudi Arabia there. Let's move on here to English.farsnews.com. Al-Qaeda militants massacre civilians in Damascus countryside. The militants of the Islamic Front and the Al-Nusra Front cut off the heads of 14 unarmed residents of Adra al-Amelia, who they had abducted in previous days, FNA dispatchers said Tuesday afternoon. On Monday, Wahhabi rebels executed over 80 civilians and kidnapped many others to be used as human shields in a town northwest of Damascus. Government forces are continuing a large-scale operation against Al-Nusra Front and Liwa al-Islam fighters who captured the town earlier this week. The area is located approximately 20 kilometers away from Damascus. Syria has been experiencing unrest since March 2011, with organized attacks by well-armed terrorists and militants against the Syrian army and civilians across the country. Well, General Wesley Clark was given a list of 7 countries that we were supposed to take out in 5 years, and of course Bush didn't do the job, so they had Obama come in and finish the job. Libya was on that list, Syria was on that list, Iraq's on that list, and as you can see, all these countries are just dropping like flies. And what is happening is we are taking the Al-Qaeda and dropping them there in Iraq, dropping them there in Libya, and now we're dropping them there in Syria to fight as Al-Nusra rebel groups, you know. And these are the same people that are killing 80 civilian Christians, beheading 14 unarmed residents. Many of these areas in Damascus are Christian settlements. Let's move on. We'll talk about that forever. RT.com. Nuclear train returns. Russia to deploy rail-based missiles to counter U.S. prompt global strike. Russia's strategic missile forces are preparing to revive railroad-based missiles and counter the U.S.'s conventional prompt global strike concept. A blueprint of the modernized nuclear train will be presented in the first half of 2014. Wow. Got a lot of news, so let's hurry up. Let's move on here to TheGuardian.com. 211 journalists in the world's jails in 2013, with 3 countries holding the most. There were 211 journalists in the world's prisons at the beginning of this year, or at the beginning of this month, meaning that 2013 had the second highest total since the Committee to Protect Journalists, the CPJ, began its annual census 17 years ago. It is close to the record high of 232 the previous year. Of course, both years under the Obama administration. According to a special report by Elena Beiser, CBJ's editorial director, Turkey was the world's leading jailer of journalists for the second year running, followed closely by Iran and China. Wow, so U.S. didn't make the top three: Iran, China, and Turkey. In fact, those three countries accounted for more than half of all the imprisoned journalists. Beiser writes, intolerant governments in Ankara, Tehran, and Beijing use mostly anti-state charges to silence a combined 107 critical reporters, bloggers, and editors. Well, here in America, they'll just kill you, or of course, like Snowden, he's in a different country right now trying to hide. Let's move on here to Infowars.com. Google search and destroy the internet giant buys a pioneer of scary robot animals. Big Dog is capable of many things of interest to its new owners at Google. What remains to be seen is whether the quadruped robot's ability to pick up a breezed block and hurl it across a warehouse with impressive dexterity and speed is among them. The computer search giant has completed the purchase of Boston Dynamics, the makers of cutting-edge menagerie of walking and crawling robots, including Big Dog, which counts America's Department of Defense, DoD, among its major sources of income. The robotics firm is the 8th company in the same field to be snapped up by Google in the last 6 months under a project headed by Andy Rubin, the executive responsible for turning Android into the world's most widely used smartphone software, and whose first love is robots. Mr. Rubin, an engineer by training, last week used Twitter to declare that the future is looking awesome. Yeah, really awesome. Terminator-like, huh? Let's move on here to theweek.com. Robots are the not too distant future of war. Exactly like Terminator, huh? Let's keep on going in this article. The need for humans to participate in armed conflicts could soon be over. The next generation of military hardware might be able to think and act for itself. Military hardware will soon consist of autonomous robots that know neither pity nor fear. Wow, really scary. Quite a step up from the current generation of UAVs and drones operated by humans from the safety of military bases hundreds, if not thousands, of miles away. Wow. Let's move on here to fedscoop.com. Microsoft's Xbox Kinect could be a game changer for Homeland Security. The DHS, really? Let's read this. Since a debut a short few weeks ago, Microsoft Corp's new Xbox One gaming console has jumped off store shelves at the rate of more than 100,000 per day. The pace of adoption has led to shortages in all of 13 launch markets. And now, less than 2 weeks before Christmas, there's one more market that may be trying to get its hands on the new Xbox, the Homeland Security market. While purchases by federal, state, and local security agencies won't be having a real impact on commercial availability of the new Xbox One anytime soon, officials acknowledge in interviews with FedScoop unnamed federal agencies have been leveraging the Kinect 3D motion sensing facial and voice recognition technologies that power the Xbox One for security purposes to be used against us here in America. Let's move on here to Infowars.com, an article written by Adam Salazar. Texas court rules warrants can be obtained on prediction of future crimes. You didn't think that movie with Tom Cruise, Minority Report, was just to entertain you, did you? A ruling by the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals last week opens the door for Texas law enforcement to obtain search warrants based on predictions of commissions of future crimes, an appeals judge has stated. The ruling came in the 2010 case of a man whose police alleged was fixing to cook methamphetamine. Parker County Police have been staking out suspect Michael Fred Wayron's house for over a month. When an informant tipped them off that Wayron and others were preparing to manufacture a batch of meth, police entered the home and after midnight detained Wayron and his friends outside his home in handcuffs. Police then entered the home and located pseudoephedrine, stripped lithium batteries, and other natural materials typically used to cook meth. Only after police illegally entered Wayron's home did they secure a search warrant from a judge. Of course, the request made sure not to mention the fact that they had already entered the house and seized what they were looking for. We'll stay here at Infowars.com, an article written by Paul Joseph Watson. City cites international code in effort to evict off-grid woman. Just one day after the feature story about how Robin Spironis was living off-grid by generating her own power via solar panels and collecting rainwater, city code enforcement officers visited her home to declare it unfit for human habitation. The code enforcers were able to make this determination despite not even venturing inside Spironis' house. There's a good chance they just looked at the water bill for that address and realized the city monopoly had been thwarted, reports the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Now let's move on here to money.cnn.com. Bill aims to stop employers from conducting credit checks. Senate Elizabeth Senator Elizabeth Warren, a Democrat from Massachusetts, proposed the Equal Employment for All Act with 6 other senators. Under the bill, employers would no longer be able to require prospective employees to go through a credit check or reject them due to a negative information in a credit report. Such practices have become common among businesses. A report released this year from liberal think tank Demos found that 1 in 10 unemployed Americans have been denied a job due to information in their credit reports. And these checks are conducted for all kinds of positions, from entry level to senior management. I got one more article for you here at PoliceStateUSA.com. NYPD broke down door without warrant, beat up family, and stomped pet bird to death. A Staten Island family barbecue turned into a nightmare when it was interrupted by police investigating the improper use of a parking cone to save a parking spot on the street. What resulted was a day the family will never forget, as their home was invaded without a warrant. Several family members were bludgeoned, and NYPD officers sadistically stomped on a pet parakeet that lay helpless on the floor. The incident occurred September 2, 2012, as the family of Evelyn Lugo celebrated Labor Day at their St. George neighborhood's home. Lugo, 57, and her children and grandchildren were at their home eating and enjoying each other's company. When Lugo's son, Edwin Elevanet, 26, went outside to dispose of a bag of garbage, he was approached by police investigating a parking cone. Someone had parked or placed a cone on the street to reserve parking spot without city permission. Avelet was stopped and questioned about the suspicious cone, but instead insisted that he had done nothing wrong. Not accepting his denial, police demanded identification. Avelet had nothing to show them. When he was grabbed by the arm, one of the uninformed bullies, he broke free and retreated into the house. And as you read before, they just kicked in the door and beat up his whole family, bludgeoned his family, and killed his pet bird. That's all the articles I got for you guys today. I don't want to leave you without the New World Order quote of the day by Henry Kissinger. Today, America would be outraged if UN troops entered Los Angeles to restore order. Tomorrow, they will be grateful. This is especially true if they were told that there were an outside threat from beyond, whether real or promulgated, that threatened our very existence. It is then that all peoples of the world will plead to deliver us from this evil. The one thing every man fears is the unknown. When presented with this scenario, individual rights will be willingly relinquished for the guarantee of their well-being granted to them by the world government. Again, that's Henry Kissinger at the Bilderberg Conference in Evian, France, 1991. I don't want to leave you without the proverb of the day, Proverbs 35, King James only. Every word of God is pure. He is a shield unto them that put their trust in him. It's all the articles, quotes, and verses I got for you today. I'll leave you off with the song I brought you in on. This is by Glass Harp, Do Lord.